Greetings, everybody. I am Winnie Wriggle.
And I am Physics. There we go. Swing it.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the CODCAST.
Yay, CODCAST.
So for anybody new, this is where Physics and I sit around in boats in Minecraft and fish while we solve the problems of the universe.
Yes, doing the most exciting thing you can in Minecraft, which is fishing. Yay.
Fishing. Yay, fishing. This is our origin story, right? This is how I got you to play Minecraft.
It is. Winnie conned me into playing Minecraft because she says, look, we'll stream and we're just going to sit in a boat and enjoy talking. And, you know, that'll be the game because
that's it.
Seriously, it's like that's super exciting. Like everybody's gonna be flocking to us, and then we actually started playing Minecraft.
Yeah, we got distracted by the game, so we're back to our roots, which is we spend a lot of time with each other talking about a lot of different topics, and we thought y'all might be interested in listening to us ramble. So this is our second podcast. And we have a couple of topics today. The first one I want to ask you about is you had an opportunity recently to go to your first political rally.
Yes. Well, I was a long time ago at the signing of one of the infrastructure bills under George Bush Jr. At Caterpillar. Cool. It was my second...
way to tell them how old we are, but yeah.
It was like my second week at Caterpillar, and they're like, hey, come on stage. You're former military and you're a woman, and we don't have that many here at Caterpillar, so go on up stage. So that was pretty exciting. There wasn't a lot of speeches going on because it was literally came and sat in a couple of the wheel loaders, and then he signed the infrastructure bill and then was out of there. But it was cool because he flew in on a helicopter, and it had the formations of multiple, I think there's 4 of them, so that of course obfuscate which one he's actually on. But sure. it was a pretty cool experience. So that was kind of my first foray into a presidential
political event.
Yes. I definitely was part of a number of military events, but I never considered those political. Even though they were associated with a lobbyist group that advocates for military. So I guess in that terms it was political. Yeah. But yes, so the most recent event was Tim Walz came into the nearby area, and I attended that rally.
That's cool.
Yeah, we had inclement weather, so I was actually pretty impressed by the number of people who were around and enthusiastic and excited to hear what he had to say. And for me personally, I was impressed by his incorporation of local knowledge and events. And including that, it was at least 10 minutes that he included into his speech that had to do with local issues and local concerns. And I thought that was pretty impressive.
See, that's what amazes me. And I think that would be the most challenging thing. So all the candidates are out on the road doing their thing. And it cannot be easy. I think of this about pop stars too. You got 7 shows a week, and you're in a different city every night. How do you keep track of where you are? And just remembering, hey, we're in Albuquerque and this is what's going on in Albuquerque. That's impressive to me.
Completely. I mean, he was in a different state entirely an hour before. So...
See, that's even crazier. Yeah, it's not 1 show a day. It's 10 shows a day or 5 shows a day.
I think it's more 2 to 3. But still, okay. I mean,
Still.
But I think of how much I have to prepare for speeches and for like businesses and things like that. I always gear up, and granted, it's like they've got a stump speech, so there's there's definitely. I'm sorry, I'm distracted by squirrel because my dog is distracted by squirrel.
It's catching. I hear you.
It's like squirrel.
Yeah, speech preparation is the best advice I ever got was from a former boss, and his advice was practice, practice, practice. And he was not wrong. Like, I gave presentations to my cat, to my sister, to my mother, the neighbors, my friends. Like, because I've done a couple of speaking engagements in front of, I would say my largest audience is maybe 3,500 people, which is intimidating. And so I can't even imagine going into a stadium with like 20,000 people or even 15,000 people.
Yeah,
And yeah, you're right. They have a stump speech, but they seem it's interesting to me how candidates can tailor their speech to the local area, which kind of brings us back to the whole being aware of where they are.
right. And it's important for them to like refresh because they're televised now or streamed or however you want to consume your media, and you got to have fresh sound bites, otherwise the media is not going to pick it up. So it's like they do have to refresh it pretty much every week or every every engagement.
Yeah, I would say every engagement, given the way the news cycles are going recently. What is the latest happening in the world? Like, it's always changing.
It is
Yeah. So it was a good turnout. And were there other speakers, I guess, other than the main speaker?
There was the mayor of our city spoke. We were hoping the AG would actually speak because it's a really competitive race. And the AG was in town earlier, but and maybe they met up, but the AG wasn't there. I'm trying to think of who else. Unfortunately, I didn't have the best spot, so it was a little bit difficult for me to hear some of the speakers. But Walls's was pretty distinct and clear, so I could make out most of what he had to say. But it was good.
Right.
Yeah, it was a fun venue. People were, it was just good. It was just it was engaging. It was, as someone who supports people going out and voting, so please vote, whatever inclinations you have. Like, that's what's important for our participatory democracy.
Yeah, active participation, man. Everybody get out there and vote.
Yeah, because
everybody should be able to vote.
Because that was a strong impetus for me joining the military, is I felt very strong about our constitutional privileges that we have. Like, we're still very unique within the world about what we value in terms of free speech, and be able to gather in groups to be able to influence our political system. Like, it's still, this little democratic experiment is still very unique.
Well, I was watching, I'm sure, or listening to a bunch of podcasts over the last week, and one of the themes that came up that interested me was this notion that we are, and still the best example of a representative democracy that exists. Like, I think I'm saying exactly what you just said. And that with that role, especially given our military strength, it also gives us the responsibility to help other democratic nations, or in many cases, not every case, but I feel like as a country, we have a sense that we're obligated to help
it's been
nations that are struggling to become democratic, or nations who have been attacked and are democratic and are struggling to kick out bullies.
And that's been our philosophy and policy. Not everybody agrees with that. I mean, some people
Yeah.
want to be more isolationist, which can be understandable. But I do think there is a strength to the idea of supporting democracies around the world, because as having allies and friendship, and having the understanding that democracies are actually um, fragile. I mean,
Hmm.
and having the support of your neighbors in terms of that is super important. And by defending other democracies, we're defending ourselves, and that's the
Yeah,
philosophy.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think it's like I think you hit the nail on the head with it's not just that we're helping them out of the goodness of our heart.
right,
There is also there's a political strategy to it, which is the more strong democracies that we have developed relationships and friends with, the less likely we are to be attacked because we are perceived as having strength not just internally, but with our political friendships.
right. And that's the same
You know?
idea that of like helping neighbors. It's like if you
Yeah.
have strong connections within your community um, as a person, as a company, you're just going to be stronger in general. So it's like that's why we have like education system and be able to lift people up. We have, and I'll use an example from my experience in terms of training, is that we have a philosophy here in the United States that if you gain a skill set and you share it with your coworkers and your team members, then you're going to be stronger as a group. And I've worked other places where it's like they had a different philosophy. It's like, no, I if I share my skill sets and my knowledge with somebody else, then they're going to take my job. So why would I want to contribute and give that knowledge away? And here in the United States, it's like, no, you come up with better ideas, you have more innovation. It just shows that you have uh, an ability to grow within your job and skill sets to be able to share and mentor. And it's really a different philosophy, and you can tell how much people grow and learn by having that philosophy and compare it to different countries. And I'm
Well,
specifically
it
thinking about
also
Nigeria, and it was people are very adversarial about their knowledge base.
whereas I've worked in Japan and that is a huge focus on the group effort because your job is not to do a great job individually. Your job is to make your product that your group is responsible for the best it can possibly be because you want it to reflect well on the company.
Hmm. And the society and the yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I think American businesses have both in I've worked in the military industrial complex and the federal healthcare complex most of my career, and there is still a divide in leadership style where they're in an organizations where the leadership is very cooperative and encourages that sharing of knowledge and I'm going to use the T word teamwork, you know.
Is it,
Um
why do you
but
say
it's
it
much
like
just a
that?
much
I'm
it's a much more positive environment than one in which you're encouraged to compete against your fellow worker, you know? And I know
Mhm.
some businesses just naturally lend themselves to a competitive environment, like, I think sales is a great, like, cookie cutter example of that, where you're competing against other sales, and one of my sisters works in, marketing and sales, and it's, did they meet their quota and did they do better than the other guy? And,
Right. And then you have
over
companies
a period of
like
time. Yeah.
GE where they always do a 10% cut. If you're on the bottom
Yeah.
10% or
Bottom
then
10%. Bye
you're out.
bye.
And I don't
Which
know if
is
they still do
silly.
that, but it's like even if you're in a team that has like 5 people, then it's like one person's going to leave every time every year, which is insane. Like
That is
if you have
insane.
such a small
That's,
group, that doesn't mean they're underperforming. It's just you
no.
have to make a value judgment, and then it's like they're calling 10%, and I don't know. I don't know if they still do that, but I know that was true 10 years ago.
So this kind of brings me into something I wanted to cover, which was it's actually the title of my thumbnail, which is how do you know when to quit? And for me, I was talking this morning, I was waxing poetic in my stream this morning because it was the final stream of a mod pack I've been streaming. Hey Drake, how's it going? Teamwork makes the dream work. Haha, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
How you doing today, friend? But I was waxing poetic this morning about specifically knowing when to quit playing a particular mod pack or a game for that matter. And I have some pretty telltale signs about when I know I'm kind of done and I'm ready to wrap up. Whether that's just me playing it by myself or playing it as part of an ongoing series on the channel. But it made me think, like when you and I were talking about topics for today, how do you know when to quit anything? How do you know when to quit a relationship? How do you know when to quit a job? How do you know, I have a, like for job rule, and that's what we were talking about, jobs, I have kind of my golden rule for quitting jobs was if you got to wait 6 months, if you feel like you need to quit, wait 6 months. And if you can't change and something else doesn't change, then go find something else. But most workplace issues, whether they're personality conflicts, tasking conflicts, training conflicts, whatever they are, most of them resolve themselves within 3 to 6 months. Like, and if they don't, then you have a company who has systemic problems and you probably should look for something else or a new department or new manager, you know.
Right. I mean, I do know somebody who was part of a company for like 2 weeks, and that was the role that they were hiring for was not a good fit with the people they decided to hire. And so they actually had hired 5 people to fill a role, and they all quit. They all quit within like a month. And it's just because the company didn't have the flexibility. They were trying to look for somebody innovative and to expand into one of the markets they were interested in, but the company wasn't willing to give these experts the authority and reign to do the work. And so it was very quickly obvious that it wasn't a good fit because the company wasn't willing to support them.
Yeah.
But I think part of looking at quitting is, yeah, quality of life too nowadays. It's like that's super important. And do you have that flexibility? Is like, do you need the paycheck, or you know, it's like what can and can't you put up with?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, so Drake is saying he's still job hunting and tired of being ghosted after you interview at places.
Yeah, it's
That
horrible.
is just that's just rude. Like I know that that's kind of the norm now.
I think it's been the
But
norm for
just
quite a while.
I know. Just freaking give people an email. Hey, we've hired, thanks, bye. Like you don't have to be mean about it. You could just, but like don't let them sit there for 2 weeks wondering anything.
Well, and there's
You know,
more and more companies are actually keeping portfolios of talent so that they have it in their back pocket, and they go through
yeah.
a certain level of interviews, and then they're going to stop. Like that was their intention to start with, which I think is
Oh, just to
horrible.
develop a portfolio of people?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's terrible. I don't like that at all. Yeah, I think the other thing that it took me a long time, and I think Drake knows this, job is a job. So something that took me a very long time to understand. When I first started entering the workforce, I worked for a small business and we were, I'm going to sound like a freaking Hallmark commercial. We were like a family and everybody was close and they were doing their best for the business so it would succeed and yada, yada, yada. And I realized like about 12 years into it, I was young. I realized I had been drinking the Kool-Aid, right?
Well, that's how we were
And that,
raised.
yeah. And the reality is it was just a job. it was just a paycheck. I was working somewhere for a paycheck to pay my bills. And I think that is an excellent reason to have a job.
Mm-hmm.
I want a paycheck to pay my bills. And there is there's lots of different philosophies about that. Should you do something that keeps you interested? Yes. I think that's important. But if you don't have that privilege, it's okay to say, this is just a job. Like, I don't care about you wanting me to wear the company t-shirt on Fridays or go to the company picnic or
Yeah, the
what is the
mandatory
horrible
fun events.
mandatory fun events, which suck always. Or the what was the one that used to drive me around the bend? Oh, that I needed to be investing in my education and work offline, like in my own time. I should be reading these books or studying these things or whatever to make me better at my job, and the company wasn't going to pay me for any of that. And I was like, screw that. Like,
You know,
no.
when I first joined the military, they sent me a box of books on leadership. Like literally, there was I had 5 to 10 books. That I can't remember how many. It was at least 5 books on leadership. They're like, here, now that you're a lieutenant, learn these skills. And then they were actually good books to read. But that's just like it reminded me of that, of like, here, you've had 4 years of an education. Now you get to have do some more reading.
Which begs the question, like, do I get to read these at my desk while I'm on duty?
No, they used to let you exercise for
like,
an hour because you were required to be in shape. And then
right.
the civilians were like, that's not fair. And I'm like, wait, I'm on call 24/7 and I have to go to war. And as a civilian, you don't have,
pretty
that's
much.
not a mandatory.
I better get paid for my gym workout. If you're going to make me be in shape, you better pay me to be in shape. I totally
so
agree
they
with
took that hour away. Like, you no longer could do it during work hours. And I'm like, seriously?
What?
Yeah, I was very upset about
That's
that.
dumb.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
Especially since I was
I think
chunky
all jobs,
monkey.
I think all jobs should include paid quality of lifetime. Like,
Dude, some
yeah,
jobs don't even
I would
pay you to get to your work site. Like for miners, like
yep.
it can take an hour to get set up and then get to your actual location, and they don't pay you for that.
That's ridiculous. I think you should pay people to work 4 hours, like productively work 4 hours, and then 4 hours of like people improvement and quality time life. So you could still work an 8-hour day, but only 4 hours of it has to be dedicated to the company.
Yeah.
That's my ideal company.
I mean, there are some
mantra.
companies that do that in software that you can work on your own project for a day or every other week or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I can see like working in like the manufacturing and fabrication field, that's not realistic for necessary for everybody. It's like
I'm just like, why not? Like 4 hours on the line, maybe in 2-hour chunks. And then 4 hours at the workplace where I have a daycare so you can hang out with your kids, and a gym so you can work out, and a coffee shop so you can catch up with your coworkers, and a library so you can go spend an hour learning whatever the hell I think is important for you to learn. You know what I mean? Like a campus mentality.
Yeah, but they have that like at Google, but it's like after hours. They don't want you to ever leave. They've got cots there.
Well, that's different. Yeah, no, you definitely need to allow people to go home for sure. But if you're going to demand people have a certain set of qualities, if you're going to demand certain people have a certain set of qualities to work with you, you need to support what this word I'm thinking of that I can't think of. What is it? Your development, right?
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah, your development. Drake says he struggles with that mindset. He's not fond of wasting time and is tired of starting over. Yeah.
I have an issue with that too. Like I'm trained as a 6 Sigma black belt, so I'm very sensitive to waste, and seeing waste within either a system, politics of a company, philosophy, just actual work execution drives me insane. And I just have a hard time getting over that, and that's just part of it. It's like there's always going to be a certain amount of waste, and frustration there, and that's why it's called work and not a hobby.
Yeah.
But I feel you,
Yeah,
man.
save your passion for your hobbies, man. Like that way, like, because the question is, how do you, it's one of the reasons I never became a professional musician, because I didn't want my music to become my work. I had a fear about one of the things that I loved becoming a job.
See, I didn't know Xanax was a thing. Otherwise, maybe I would have become a violinist.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I think it's do I think you should find something you like and are good at and are interested in? Sure. Some people have a need to work in an industry that they feel like they're making a difference.
Yeah, that would be nice.
But I think it's maybe easier to make a difference in your own time on things.
We do need a culture of helping out and being part of a community more. Like we're losing that aspect of what's the right word for of helping out, of volunteerism. That
yes,
as a core tenet of our society. And they blame it on women going to work, which I find insane. But
that's ridiculous.
But I do think it's important for us to feel connected. And I say this as like somebody who's not volunteering enough, but as something I want to get involved in more.
I think volunteering you can volunteer in a bunch of different ways that aren't like, I'm going to go down and work at the soup kitchen, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Like, I consider taking care of an elderly relative, and even if that taking care of means that you just socialize with them a couple of times a week, that's volunteering, right? Like,
right.
That's taking your time to contribute to somebody else. Stopping to talk to a neighbor, checking on a neighbor, that's volunteering. You know, being nice to your checkout people when you're out in public, that's voluntarily being a good citizen.
Not being an asshole.
Yeah. I read an op-ed that fascinated me. Like, it was a very short one, but it was a rant about how and it's from someone who lives in LA in a had been not, a rundown neighborhood, but blue collar working class neighborhood that had kind of gone south because retail had moved out and the
kind of
city
on the
wasn't
decline.
like the city wasn't maintaining the streets very well, etc. And the thing that they attribute to fixing the neighborhood was a taco stand.
Really? Okay.
So a taco stand came in, set up their taco truck like in a permanent location in a parking lot of a building, a retailer that had gone out of business. And it was near a bus stop. And they cleaned up, like the workers of that taco stand cleaned up the neighborhood, that block area around that stand. And people walking and standing in line met each other. And the lady who was writing about this said, she's like, I met people that had lived like within 3 houses of me for 10 years that I had never met before.
Nice.
So I met my neighbors. She's like, the taco stand stayed open till 2 a.m. on the weekends. So you could wait at the bus stop at night and there was a sense of like, and feel safe. Like there was somebody there and lights and tables and chairs and a sense of community. And she's just like, this taco stand in 3 months did more than the city had done in a decade for maintaining that neighborhood.
See, that's the American entrepreneurship that we want to champion. Like, that's awesome. That's a great story. I'll have to read that article.
Yeah. It was just fascinating. It reminded me, and that ties back into the thing that you and I were talking about the other day and has come up again and again. I think we got it from probably Pod Save America, where they're talking about the lack the loss of third spaces, like places for people to hang out
Was
and
that Bowling
communicate with
Alone?
one another.
They were talking about the book.
Yes, it's similar, but it's come up frequently, I think, in many different places for me over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, it's like I play mahjong at at our local communities, not community. What is that? Not
Our neighborhood
Our neighborhood, but it's not a community center, is it?
clubhouse. It's a clubhouse.
Clubhouse. There we go. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, at the little clubhouse, and that's nice. I mean, we are up to like 6 people now that from our neighborhood that come and play and rotate through, and yeah, it's nice.
That's pretty great. That's why I was involved in the HOA for so many years, because I wanted to like actually get to know some of our neighbors. And despite the drama and stress that's associated with being on an HOA, dear God, I will say I don't regret any of it, because it did allow me, like, I know like the vast majority of people who live in our neighborhood. I know them by name and face. And I may not necessarily like them. Like, just because you're my neighbor doesn't mean I love you. But would I look out for them and help them in a pinch? Absolutely. That is, they're my neighbors, right? I have a vested interest in their health, well-being, and safety, just by proximity.
Mm-hmm.
And it does help to spend time with people who may not share the same ideas or interests that you have. Like the things that we have in common are much more important than the things that separate us.
Mm-hmm. I actually I had a little coffee clatch when I lived in Houston, and it was a group of women. We had all different philosophies and political inclinations, but at the end of it, it's like everybody pretty much still wanted the same things. They wanted safety and funding or money for their families, so that they could live and enjoy their life.
Yeah, Jake says it reminds him of a book he had to read in high school called Seed Folks.
Okay.
About one person who starts using a vacant lot in a city as a garden, and more people come together to make it thrive. So yeah, community garden. That's huge. My sister lives in New York, in a very busy suburb north of the city. And it's interesting to me that there is also a community garden on the public park property in the middle of this really big New York suburb. And it is a big community run location. Like, there are a ton of people who participate in maintaining and managing that garden, and it gives them a opportunity to meet their neighbors. And yeah, making third spaces. I'm still not over the taco stand helping the whole neighborhood. Like,
yeah,
I don't think I realized the impact of that.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm kind of chewing on that quite a bit, I guess, pun intended.
Well, I think the closing line was something hilarious, like the key to a better world is a chalupa or something, but it wasn't a chalupa. I don't know what the word is for a street taco.
Taco? I was trying to think of
no, it was
chimichanga.
Like
I have the t-shirt like tacos and chimichangas, but it has a Deadpool.
Nice.
But I always think of Invader Zim.
I need tacos. I need tacos.
Taquitos.
So good.
I think I'm hungry.
Right? Probably. Me too. What's funny is we went to Mexican, but you didn't eat Mexican.
Oh no, I had chips and salsa and guacamole and a beer.
I'm trying to make an argument for going to Mexican when we're done.
That's a duh. Duh.
That's a duh. Yeah, so third spaces, communities, when to quit, kind of circling back around there.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, the workplace stuff is hard.
You quit when they're about
Which
to lay you
oh
off. You're like, okay, lay me off, go for it.
God,
I'll say,
yeah.
I'll say yes.
Well, we've both been in situations like I've been in a situation where the primary contract that I was working on, and this is the nature of government contracts, where the funding ran out.
Right.
And so I chose not to work on any other projects and instead quit that company at that
Essentially, right.
time. Yeah. Um, Not for them lack of trying to bring me back, but I decided I was kind of done. I had worked for them for a very long time, and I think probably to my detriment. I didn't realize how important changing jobs every like at I would say a minimum of every 3 to 5 years, how that affects your pay scale.
Right.
That
Well, and I think they never saw you beyond your original scope and expertise. Even though you're a founding
yeah.
member, you weren't treated equally and equitably among the founders. They always felt that
Yeah,
you
and
were
I think
super
that's
junior.
yeah. That's the nature of having started there when I was, like, 22 years old, right? And suddenly I'm 35 and a senior managing director, and yet there's still people in the company who couldn't ever see me past, an entry level 22-year-old data admin.
Hmm.
That's a struggle. So that's the other reason you change jobs. And I went into a company after that, took a few months off, and then started consulting. And that was fun, and the consulting led to a full-time position at another company where I ended up being a managing director, which was great, and kind of an executive coach, for some of the more senior members, and that was perfect. Like, I didn't actually want to be an owner in that second company. I just wanted to mentor other project managers and program managers,
Yeah.
and so that was much more my speed, and it gave me the opportunity to ask for a heck of a lot more money, like twice my other salary, which is crazy, which just tells me how much I was undervaluing myself at the previous company,
Right.
you
No,
know?
I mean it wasn't crazy because that's what you were worth. Like that
Yeah,
is,
exactly.
and you probably still are undervaluing yourself.
I still was very undervalued because I worked remotely, so I didn't have to have a DC paycheck.
Right. They were happy to pay you less, which was actually a lot
Yep.
more for the area you were in because you were
Yeah,
remote.
exactly.
It was
Yeah.
it's in that respect it was kind of win-win, but you still were being undervalued because I I disagree with the concept that just because you live in a lower uh a
Lower
a
cost
lower
of living
cost
place
area doesn't mean that your actual value is
is
it's
less. Yeah,
less. I mean, like
I
take home
agree.
pay makes a difference, but it's no, it's like if your time is worth X dollars an hour, no matter where you are, that's what it's worth. And
Yeah.
if you yeah, and choosing location I think is a little bit more personal decision, but I think I'm a little bit wrong on that. But that is an underlying bias of mine. I will say is that um, I come from a very mobile family. Like we have moved for work throughout our generations. Um, and
Yeah.
I know that other people do not because they have family and locations. But I'm like that is a decision of like if you can't find work, then move for it. And I guess I think about that a little bit as a country of immigrants is that is
Mhm.
our history. I mean, I don't care how long your family is homesteaded. At some point in time, people moved because the
They
opportunities they were
immigrated
at.
here.
They immigrated here.
Just FYI, unless you are a Native American, your family came from immigrants. Just
Exactly.
just saying.
And part of my
Yeah.
family is actually a pretty new. Like my grandfather, not even great grandfather, but grandfather immigrated here. I mean, granted,
Mhm.
he was like 2 years old at the time, but I mean, he's but yeah, he became a citizen. So that I mean, that's not too
I
far
think
away.
on my mom's side, it's only about 5 generations. It's the great-great-grandparents that emigrated to Kansas. in the late 1800s. My dad's side's different. We got like Mayflower people there, but
I always thought it was funny overseas. It was there was a girl who was Asian, but her family came to Florida with the railroads back in like just what is that, 18 something, 18.
yeah, post
60?
So during the Restoration, so like 1860s,
Yeah. So her family had been
post Civil War,
It was actually her family was here pre-Civil War.
pre Civil War,
Pre-Civil War.
1840s. When was the great, like, when did the two railroads meet? Alexa, when was the age of the railroad in the United States? 1820s to the 1890s.
Yeah, so her family was the early part, like the 1820s. She's still going.
Alexa, stop. Yeah. She can read me the whole Wikipedia article.
So the point being is like people would always ask her, it was like, oh well, like where are you from? And she's like, Florida. They're like, no, like originally, like, and she's like, my great Florida. You know, it was like came and settled in Florida.
So funny when people, I think this is a tip. So it's interesting to me that when people of color are asked, where are you from? The implication is, where did you emigrate from?
Right.
And I'm withholding judgment on how pissed off that makes me. And yet, if you are white, the where are you from question is, what other state did you live in before you moved here? And the fact that those two questions sound the same and yet are completely different. Like, because everybody, many people where we live are from other places. And so when people say, hey, where are you from? They mean like, what made you move here?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're in an area where the population growth is surging. And we did move here from another state.
Right.
You know.
Well, I think a lot about being in Houston more than so than like Dallas or San Antonio. It's like I have friends who like the border moved over them. It's like they have family from Mexico because Texas used to be part of Mexico. It's like the Six Flags over Texas, man. It's all the different country flags that have dominion over Texas. And and so it was like, yeah, it's like I was part of Texas before Texas was part of the US in terms of family.
Right. And I know that my grandmother's father moved them to Texas when she was in her teens. Like that we were originally from Kansas on that side of the family. But they moved during the Great Depression because there was no food and no work.
Yeah.
And they had to, and he was like, well, if I'm going to feed my family, I'd better buy 40 acres and a mule, literally, in Southeast Texas.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm watching. There's two.
I know. I'm watching them out of the corner of my eye too. Like those are the first guys, and they came a long way over here.
Oh, they just changed, but they changed to
zombies. Did you know that was a thing?
Yes, I did know that was a thing. So they turned to zombies, and now they're gonna turn
husks, and then to drowns.
Yep.
So you could take a husk farm. Do we have husk spawners in vanilla Minecraft?
No. You have a desert. I mean, that's...
Yeah, I mean, that is a husk spawner, right?
I'm trying to think, because we have the drown. I wonder if... Because I wonder if that would change the spawn rate for the copper farm. If I could get even more by having 2 levels. Yeah, because they'll float up now.
Right, and get in the... Sir?
There we go.
In the boat too. Should we just leave them there? I guess they'd burn up in the sun, wouldn't they?
Yeah, we can't
Out of
wait.
my boat.
So the question is, like, we've been going long enough that we probably need to sleep. Should we go ahead and sleep?
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, let's take the boats over. And that gives me a good completely unrelated segue to something you and I were talking about earlier, which is
We're gonna make it in time.
are we perfectionists that we're making it in time? We're talking about the pressure of perfectionism and the 80% rule, which I love as a concept. And that is when you're working on something, do you don't stress out and try to get it 100% correct. Now,
Make it the
I'm
best.
gonna caveat that with, if you're in school, you need to try to get 100% if you can, because it does have long-term bearing on stuff. However, in work and in life, like, and especially in, I guess let's go over here to this side of the house, maybe.
I'm just showing off my
The house
iron
behind
farm. That's why I
know,
chose that
good.
spot.
That's good. I'm gonna do maybe this way,
Okay.
and then kind of tilt towards you since that angle worked really good. There we
I'm
go.
really button up next to you here. There we go.
That nope.
Which way
That's
are
a
you looking?
bow. I can look that way.
You want to go to the other side, make you happier, since this is just out in the middle of the water?
I mean, it's got the house behind us, and we're over the pretty.
There we go. I'll just do it that way. You're gonna pick up all my stuff this way, though, which is cool. That's fine.
Really?
Yeah, because you're in front of me.
You doesn't have to be that extreme. Why are you looking back? Just look back behind you. Not like, where do you want to look? Put yourself where you want to be, and I will orient myself to you. Because I'm not understanding.
All right, let's see. Which way do I want? I want to be able to like face this way then, and then F5.
We're gonna do this, and there we go. Oops. Okay.
You're much
you happy
better
now?
Yeah, it's fine.
How was any different? All you had to do was turn the other way 20 degrees, and our fishing lights would have been fine.
No, I think, I mean, if you'd seen it from my view, it was like you were in front of me, but and now you're not.
Because of the way you turned. It must have been what you wanted to see behind you, is my point. Like, you oriented yourself to what it looked like instead of what direction you were facing.
It was,
Possibly.
no, it was like I was just looking out at the ocean.
The real question is, did we
do the 80% or is it 20?
Did we 80% correctly line up, or did we 100%? The husks have been moisturized, says Drake.
Yes.
Moist husks. Yeah.
That's a question. It's like, yes. Zombies are all zombies originally husks?
Maybe?
And they get portaled from a land of deserts after they get moisturized?
They're just wet. They're just wet husks. So they're fully, now that just the image of a zombie that's dried out enough to be a husk, and that somehow you can make that dried out husk wet enough to be a zombie again. And then if they get even more wet, now they're soaked, which means they're drowned.
Yep.
So husks, zombies, and drowns are just different stages of moist zombie.
Yes.
Like, my mind is blown. I need a diagram.
I find this funny that you've never known this aspect.
No, because I did not realize that a husk underwater would turn into a zombie. Like, I knew a husk was a version of a zombie, and it makes perfect sense that they're from the desert, so they're kind of dried out, which is why they're husks, which still does not make me understand why something even drier than a regular zombie does not burn in the sun.
What husk?
Answer me that.
I don't understand the question. Can you repeat it?
Husks do not burn in the sun,
No. Oh, yeah,
but they're
because
drier than zombies. So why? That doesn't
um
make any sense.
so they've been dehydrated to the point that they can't burn.
But they
Versus,
can't catch fire. What's
yeah.
that even?
So they've become acclimated.
Drake's.
They've become acclimated to their environmental conditions, because otherwise they would burn. So as soon as they become zombies, because they've been hydrated enough, then they have something that can burn. It's like
Yeah, because water burns.
yeah, definitely like water burns. Oh, it burns so
Drake says, "Don't
bad."
get your mummies wet after midnight, folks."
That's awesome. Little
They turn into
gremlins.
gremlins. I need to watch that again.
I don't know. I think I'll get more scared this time.
It did terrify me as a kid. Not funny.
Yeah.
The little creepy gremlins are creepy, man.
They are. But 80/20.
Okay, well,
No, I think that's a really excellent way to go about things. I mean, when you're talking about your own self-improvement and studying, you want to get the most value out of it. But I mean, I did have some classes that I wasn't all that engaged in, and it was literally
Yeah.
just the check mark. And in those classes, it was like I did find out like calculated. I was terrible. I calculated the bare minimum that I needed to do to achieve success and completion for those classes. Literally
Yeah.
to the like, how many questions do I need to answer on my final to ensure that I pass? And then just walk out as soon as I answered that number because I need to go study for a different class.
Yeah, that's just called good planning and time management, I think. Because if you didn't need more than the minimum to meet whatever goal or requirement you had,
D was for
then
done.
that's fair.
D
Yeah.
me passing.
I'm trying to think about like work, and I guess the 80% rule is probably more relevant to a entrepreneurial efforts. Like I'm trying to think about if you're in a corporate environment and you're responsible for producing a product, maybe it should be the 90% rule.
Well, I think
Because it's
it has to
frustrating. It's
do with the
frustrating to
matrices that you're trying to fit. Like,
yeah.
I mean, because you can engineer something continuously. But the
Yeah, you
question-
can work on something till they like beat it till it's dead.
Right. So I think in terms of engineering, it's like, have you met the criteria for your product design and development? And if the answer is yes, then yes, there may be. I love how you're two-fisting.
I did that one. It has bending on it, so we're gonna
okay.
heal it. Like
Okay, but sorry. So it was like you once you've met that, even like design for software design or any like kind of engineering process, it was like you need to stop because you can always improve things. There really literally is a way to improve everything, but to be able to get it out and available to people to consume, you do have to have a stopping point. And the 80/20 is good because you do need to spend resources in other areas, so you have to manage that.
Well, I think maybe it's like this. Maybe the 80% rule is, and this is what we're talking about. Sorry, let's say this in plain English. Let's say you have any kind of project or thing you're trying to accomplish. Like, I'm gonna learning how to knit's not a great example.
Thumbnails, tweaking them.
I'm gonna make a thumbnail for a video, right? And you like are not 100% happy, but the text is good, the title is catching, the image is bright, it's relevant to the video that you're either going to make or have made, and you just say like that's kind of it satisfies, like it's a good solid B effort. It gets its point across and it's time to post it and move on, because you might have spent 20 minutes on 80% of that project, and the last 20% will take you 2 hours. That is a waste of your time,
Right.
right? So, because it's not worth it because you could get 3 other thumbnails done in that time. And
Or you can think of new topics for
you're
discussion.
thinking new
It's
topics, other videos, work on other stuff, edit, whatever. So, but here's what just occurred to me. Like I just had an epiphany. Like, especially if you're talking about a development project,
Mhm.
and maybe it's that you 80% it until you get to a completion point where you have a game, you have assets, you have a good game loop, you have all of your design elements finalized, you have your menu finalized, and you say, "Okay, I checked 80% of the boxes that need to be checked in order to have a finished game." And then you reset the percent rule, right?
well, and
Like
that is an
you
iterative
go back to your project, right? Yeah,
that
it's
is
iterative.
a
It's not
planned
just
iterative design. And that's
yeah,
something
like it's
different because I think part of the 80% rule is creating a good stopping point for knowing you've accomplished something and that you don't
yes.
start. I look at it kind of like if you're writing something and you
Mhm.
find that you keep changing the tense back and forth, or you have that one sentence that's just not quite reading right, and you give
Right.
it to somebody,
Yep.
your boss, and then they change it, and then
Yep.
you incorporate it, and then you give it back to your boss, and then they change it back. Like you've hit the
Yeah.
80%. Like it's you've.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
It
for
was like,
sure.
okay, you've made this edit twice for the same paragraph, and you've just
You're
swapped
done.
back and forth. Like
Yeah.
it should be
Yeah.
done.
But I think of it in terms of how we structured writing proposals. And that was a very iterative process, but it was an 80% rule iterative process. Like you wanted 80% of the proposal done, the week before it was due. You wanted all the text drafted, the outline done, the checklist of everything that you were going to have to need as supporting documentation, all your supporting documentation gathered and copied and put in folders and ready to be attached. And
Right.
so you could say, 4 days out, you were done with the major prep for the proposal. Like you had a draft, a complete draft.
Right.
Now you reset the clock and you hand out assignments again and you say, okay, Jim's in charge of uh taking a closer look and proofreading the financials, right? And Janie's in charge of proofreading the actual technical proposal,
I
and
think we're
somebody
getting
else
in
is
the
in
weeds
charge of
here.
proofreading whatever. No. But what I'm saying is that just because you get to an 80% point on a project doesn't mean that the project is finished. It's just it can also be a good stopping point to then like do the final pieces. I'm
Right.
talking
Right.
about iteration
Yeah.
on big things,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like not did you plan the garage sale? Like I have signs, I have a dates, I have most of the stuff out on tables. We're 80% done. Let's open the doors.
Right.
Like that's good because otherwise you'd never have a garage sale. Like you would spend all your time. Did I price every piece of used silverware I'm going to put in the garage sale? No. Like, and if you do, you're crazy because you just wasted 2 weeks pricing things. I don't know. This is coming from someone whose mother is 100% preparer for garage sales. But, you
Yeah.
80%, be happy with your 80%. Know when to quit. See? It
Embrace
comes back to that.
your sense of accomplishment.
Embrace your sense of accomplishment.
Like I
Know when to
keep
stop writing the story. That kills me.
of course I keep thinking about my obsession with iron farms and chicken farms. And I will
I mean,
continue to tweak them because I have this
but
sense
I
that
would say that each time you say, "Okay, this one is ready to go," that's your 80% rule kicking in going, "Okay, I can't make this design any better. Like the way I started, the parameters I gave to myself, it's a completed project."
that's true because I do
And then you
create
can and
concepts
then you can go
around like
back to the iron farm problem from scratch and start another 80% rule.
Right. I
You
do
know,
have different objectives for the iron farms that I design, which is like,
yes.
okay, is this a peaceful one? Is it going to be like run by chickens? Is it going to be run by snowballs? Is it going to be a scare tactic? Is it going to
Is it
be the
above ground? Is it
smallest,
underground?
smallest footprint, most efficient? These are all characters that changes the type of
Most
design.
iron per hour.
Right.
Like, yeah. Like, does it need 1 village or 5 villages or 20 villages?
Yes.
We have discovered that anything more than, unless you're on a server and you're planning on selling your iron, you really need only need 1, maybe 2 villages.
I like the double
Little
village
villager
one because
groups.
you can create
Yeah.
one platform and get a dual spawn
Yeah,
about
exactly.
75% of the time. And so I find that that's the most efficient in terms of the number of blocks that you use and time to set up.
Yeah.
So I like that because you can have one scare person, so like one zombie, and husks are great because they don't burn. And then you have one platform and then two villages. And to me that's the best.
Yeah, it's a really good design. So Drake says his personal integrity definitely struggles with accepting 80%. LOL. He spent literally years learning the concept of acceptable losses.
Yes. And people have a hard time with that.
He's in the manufacturing environment, right? Like,
Okay.
that's most of his experience.
Yes.
So yeah, acceptable loss. This is like the conversation we had with my dad the other day about, like, there are always going to be people who need access to, there's always going to be outliers in any system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but the most of the time, most systems accommodate 80% of the people with no problem, that the give and take that's designed into them is fine.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
is the
20%.
majority actually benefiting from the program that's been generated versus
who are
gonna
that it was designed to benefit.
right.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be a group of people who may take advantage of that system, and then a group of people who even though qualified may not be able to have access to that system, so it's a failure on that point. But there is also like a kind of a sunk cost concept into a lot of things that prevent people from quitting. And that, going back to the concept of when to quit, is that it's like probability and statistics, is that when you throw a dice, like, it's a new probability. And people don't often feel that way. It's like, oh, well, I've lost this much money, therefore it's weighs on you that you need to continue to do something, when in fact it's like, no, like, this time is versus the future is just as good to leave.
This is the sunk cost fallacy, right?
Correct. And it really,
the perception that the invested amount of time or money or whatever, that thing still holds that value.
Correct. And that's just not the case.
No.
But it does weigh on us psychologically as people, and keeps a lot of people from getting taking advantage of times to move on. Or
knowing when to quit.
Hey Joy, how's it going?
Right?
I finally looked at my chat. Hey Joy.
Oh, good job.
It's right there in front of me and I never look. I'm so sorry.
I know, I got yelled at this morning by somebody in my chat's like right there, and I was like, look, it's only been 2 minutes since I looked at it, you impatient youngsters.
Yeah, you do have a delay too, so
yeah, I got a 10-second delay on chat. Drake says he knows so many people who stay at jobs they hate and cause distress because of the sunk cost fallacy. They don't want to lose a few dollars an hour to improve their mental state, their mental health. That is huge, right? Like, you feel trapped. It's scary. Yeah, it's very scary.
And your companies don't want you to be flexible. So that, yeah.
And they don't want you to leave.
No, it costs them
right?
too much
because
money
the reality
to
is
replace
it costs
you.
them too much money to replace you, because they will have to pay somebody more. And that right there, here's your sign.
Yep.
It's also okay. So the other thing that I struggled with my entire career is asking for more money.
I didn't have a problem with that.
See, you were much better at it than I was.
They were trying to lay me off, and the company was in dire straits, and I still asked for money. And the crazy part is that they gave it to me.
They gave it to you? Yeah, it's insane. Oh, Alexa, stop.
Yeah, like
That's our reminder to wind it down.
I just like no, but I did my research, and I knew what the going rate for my expertise was, and the fact that I was moving into a new role, and I was like, okay, this is the expertise that I'm bringing into this new role, and I am aware of the situation within the company, but I gave them the dollar value and the research, and I was also moving into HR, who also understands, like, they don't want to be underpaying their female engineers.
Yep.
And so they were like, okay. So I always joke and got like I can't remember how much it was, but it was like a $5,000 yearly bonus, because I asked a question. And it was worth it, because they could have said no, and I would have been
really good.
I would have been happy with that, but I was gonna ask, and I did, and they said yes.
I did, and I kept accepting bigger projects and moving into new realms of work, and I just lolly lolly la.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. It's like
my same salary.
whenever you
the
get a
whole
new
time.
project, or you move into a different division, that is a great time to evaluate and be like, okay, what are my additional responsibilities? Does this mean that you should get paid more for it? And the answer is yes. Like
The answer is
pretty much
yes.
like 100% of the time.
I literally brought a multi-million-dollar deal into the company for an entirely new area of expertise, which is adult learning and education, through an existing customer, but it was brand new money, like
And then it was
7
based off of
digits
your
money.
relationships.
I'm sorry, 8 digits. 8 digits worth of value to the company based on my relationships and my experience and my knowledge, because I had been doing the training for this customer. And I didn't ask for a raise. I didn't ask for a title change. Like, I could just kick myself. Like, I managed a team of 25 people.
Oh,
Across
Winnie.
2 huge organizations.
I want to give you
Just
a hug. I can hear the
title and salary like a moron. Don't do what I did. Be okay with asking to be paid what you're worth.
And be okay hearing no. Like, don't set yourself up to be disappointed.
Yeah, no, but I should have just said, I'm in a new role with new expertise and I brought all this money into the company. I deserve a raise. Like, even if it just been 10% and a title change, I would have been happy with it, right?
Mhm.
And
But
so it
sometimes-
was why it was so shocking when I went to a new company and
sometimes
they
it's
paid me
worth
my asking rate.
Yeah, sometimes it's worth being strategic too, of if you get a title change or if you become responsible for managing people, go ahead and take the title change, because then they're going to be forced, because of how it's structured within their HR for pay scale, to then pay you more or give you an avenue to grow within the company. So sometimes you do have to make a decision to take just the title change, because then it'll give you the opportunity the next go around
Later
to get that, to ask for that step.
if they offer you a title change, but sometimes you have to ask.
Yeah, you have to ask. Still, like, comes down to it, ask.
Yeah. That's the lesson.
And what
for today.
they also say, it's like people join companies and they leave people. So if, like, you leave bosses, so if you've got a bad boss, then that's usually the number one reason why people leave, is that the people that they're interacting with on a daily basis is causing distress.
Yeah. Drake points out something really important. He said multiple places state in orientation and onboarding procedures, quote unquote, if you don't do the work, we'll get someone else off the streets who will. And that is definitely a disparity between professional quote unquote, and blue collar work.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would say there are definitely different negotiating tactics for both of those environments.
And I would say that's a red flag. Like if they're willing
Yeah,
and boldly saying that, then
I
they're
would not
just
work for
saying
that
up
company.
front that they just don't care about their employees. Like
Yeah, they don't value you.
unless that's the job that you want, you just want to be a nameless face and you want to go in and not care and do your however many hours and go home. So be it. Like make sure that's your decision and your choice.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's plenty of times that I feel like, hey, I just want a paycheck. Like I don't want to have any additional responsibility to this company whatsoever. Like I'll put my head down, do my job, put in the hours, and go on home. See ya.
There's something to be said for a job you can leave at work.
Yeah.
You know.
And you can tell, like, we've always been really invested in the companies we work for. We want them to be successful. We think about them or involved in after hours because it's important to us for them to succeed and our customers to succeed and get the value that they expect. So, I mean, we kind of are overachieving people, to be honest.
I mean, yeah, there is that.
So that goes back
Okay,
to
so
what
there you
our
go.
perfectionism.
Yeah, let's go back to the perfectionism versus the 80% rule. We have a hard time with the 80% rule.
Yep.
We have a hard time knowing when to quit too. There you have it.
So there we go. I think then, in the inspiration of knowing when to quit, that we have said our piece for today.
Right? We're gonna quit.
And I am Physics here with my wonderful friend Winnie, who can say whatever she wants about herself.
Thank y'all very much for watching. If you enjoyed the stream, please leave a like. It helps us out. We really appreciate it. And in the meantime, y'all take care. We'll be back next week sometime. Who knows? For another CODCAST. Exciting, talking about all kinds of different topics while we fish and